everyone, and welcome back to Mind Your Mission. Today, we have a really special guest joining us on the podcast whose work connects beautifully with our theme for this month, which is homemaking. Today, we're talking with Olivia Ramos. She's the owner of Light Cottage Bakery, a Christian home-based micro bakery here in Maryland that specializes in traditional sourdough breads and baked goods made with simple, thoughtfully sourced ingredients. And what I really love about Olivia's story is that it reflects something that we've been talking about throughout this whole series, which is just the idea that the home can be a place of creativity, nourishment, hospitality, and even mission. And through her bakery, Olivia isn't just baking bread, she's using her gifts to serve her community and support mission work around the world. Light Cottage Bakery is rooted deeply in faith, and Olivia believes that sharing and breaking bread together can open doors for deeper relationships and even gospel conversation. And a portion of the bakery's profits even go towards supporting missionaries, which I think is super, super cool. So today we are excited to talk with Olivia about sourdough, starting a business from home, the importance of quality ingredients, and how something as simple as bread can become part of hospitality and kingdom work. So Olivia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on here and share about my life because sourdough is really kind of my life now.
That's awesome. Yeah, so food and homemaking, I feel like in my mind have always gone very hand in hand. And bread, I mean the idea of breaking bread has always just been like a staple, one in people's homes, but also just in like fellowship environments. So what first made you fall in love with baking?
I actually really used to hate baking because it was too much of a science and I had to get all the measuring cups out and the teaspoons and tablespoons. So I really didn't like it until the last couple of years. I more so liked cooking where I could just wing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did really like home ec in middle school. So I feel like some of the recipes I really love are from then. But also more recently, in the last couple of years, I was working at a nonprofit where I was one of the coordinators for our homeless ministry, which was a weekly meal. And I kind of became the designated dessert lady. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just use the ingredients we had on hand, and between Pinterest and ChatGPT, I would figure out something to bake for 50 people, and I really started to look forward to that every week. Um, and then I would use that as kind of a chance to recipe test too, and I'd be like, this was really good. Maybe I could sell this or add this to the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was definitely recently, and I also loved it as a way to share the joy of baking with others. The people that came and ate the meals always loved the desserts, so that was always that always felt good to make something that people enjoyed, and it was thoughtfully made too.
So your bakery name, Light Cottage Bakery, it's beautiful and clearly rooted in faith. What inspired you to start the bakery, and then what does this name Salt and Light really mean to you?
Salt and Light started as a way for my husband and I to fundraise for our own mission trips. This was back in the beginning of 2024, so right after we got married. Um, and so we had twice the amount of money we needed to raise since we were then together. So I decided to use baking and having a bake sale as a way to fundraise for us. And through that,
Mm.
we actually raised $5,000 just from cookies and sourdough bread. So I really got to thinking hey, maybe this could be a bigger thing than it already is, and it could bless more people than just us. And the first fundraiser, actually, we were able to sponsor our good friends, and they were able to go on the Colorado mission trip that we had that summer. Um, so it grew out of that need for ourselves, and then we saw the potential to make it grow. Um, and this sort of ministry with using profits from something like a small business to support other missionaries actually was my husband's dream before we even got married.
Mm.
Um, but he wanted to use music and concerts as a way to fund it. And um, I remember him saying when I was baking and I was like, "Hey, maybe we could do this with the extra funds." He was like, "This is what I've always dreamed having a ministry would be like." So he wanted to call his City on a Hill. And I thought, oh, what would go good with that is salt and light because it
Mm-hmm.
comes from the same scripture, Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount. So I was like, salt and light's really cool, and I like that it comes from that verse, but
Mm-hmm.
it also has like a double meaning with baking because you really can't have any good baked good without salt, or I say light, or
Mm-hmm.
like your oven or heat, you could
Mm-hmm.
say.
Mm-hmm.
So, those things are both essential, like for our faith, for ministry and outreach, but also for baking. Because if we don't have the salt, we lack flavor and we like leave a bad taste in people's mouths in terms of ministering. Like if we don't do it in a well seasoned way, it really comes off the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we're not being the light, then we'll stay underdeveloped in our faith and in evangelism, reaching the lost, making disciples, the Great Commission. So we really do have to shine and grow and stretch like bread does in the oven, by shining our light in that way. So I felt like it was fitting. And I also love a good like pun or double meaning. So that's why I chose the name Salt and Light.
Yeah, it's definitely very fitting. It's really cool that I don't know, just the vision that your husband had, that God kind of brought that to light in a like for both you, like that it tied in really well to his like vision. That's super amazing, and I feel like God works that way. Like very often where I have it's like something stirring in my heart and it doesn't like piece together until later in life. So I love that. That's super cool that that ties in.
Yeah.
So many of our listeners and kind of the heart behind our podcast in general came from like when Liz and I had our children and just realized like the tug on our heart to transition out of military life and do something that was more flexible. I'll say there are definitely more flexible jobs than the military out there. Because we really wanted to be home with our kids and just establish a strong family household rhythm. And so many of the people who follow this podcast, they're moms who want to be home with their children, but a lot of them also have a desire to create something or build something of their own. So can you talk about the business side of your bakery a little bit? Like how did you turn baking from something you did at home into a small business?
Yeah. So it actually started while I was still at my full-time job. I was working already in ministry, so I kind of had an idea of the like logistical side of things, but I had to grow the small business on the side. And that really started just by researching what I needed to do, like legal wise,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the state of Maryland, because cottage food laws are very specific to like state to state.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with that, and honestly there was also just a lot of faith and trust in the Lord that like he would tell me when the right time to quit my job would be. There were many other factors that led me to quit that job, but it definitely was like his timing, and just trust that he would build it too. And I think the biggest thing that like I didn't just have in mind for the bakery, but just throughout my whole life, even in high school, I did a project on it, was I think it's Colossians 3:23, and all that you do work as if you're working for the Lord. So I definitely try to let that frame my mindset around starting a business, and I would do that regardless of if it had like a mission or not. But yeah, it just started by researching what I need to do to make it legal. I got my LLC. I comply with the Maryland cottage food laws. Of course, that'd be different if someone doesn't have like a food based business. But doing everything by the book, I think, is also important as an ambassador of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the one way we can show that we're the light, is by doing things right and obeying the laws and being a good citizen, a good person of this world, even though we're not of this world, we're in this world, but we can still shine our light in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely like relied on my husband a lot too, and like his leadership in our home. He has been my biggest encourager in starting this business. I mean, obviously, he has a heart for the same mission as well, but just asking for the Lord's guidance, but also leaning on my husband's leadership as well, and trusting that he would help me and also kind of like fill in the gaps financially. Finances are scary and kind of crazy, especially when you just started a business. And my husband also just got a new job. But we are not lacking because we really do trust the Lord. Like it's a day in, day out thing that we have to do. And we've learned a lot in this season of transitioning me to having a small business. So um I would say if someone is wanting to, if a woman is wanting to have a small business where she can be at home with her kids, I mean that's also part of why I wanted to start Salt and Light too. Just pick something that brings you joy and that you're good at and you can like monetize that. That's what I actually tell people when they are looking for help fundraising. I'm
Mm.
like, oh, just choose something that you're good at, like or that you love. Say a guy loves landscaping, you
Mhm.
know, he can turn that into a fundraiser or even further into a business. Same with my baking too. So pick something that you enjoy, that you can monetize, and do it the right way. Look up
Mhm.
the laws. And also as a wife, like I think it's as a godly wife, I think it's really important to like lean into that leadership of your husband too. And it really like strengthens, I mean, our marriage has grown a lot
Mhm.
in this time too. So I think if you're faithful within that, like the Lord will just grow your business, but also your marriage as well.
Mhm.
And I don't have children yet, but I'm sure that the blessing is just tenfold when children are involved too.
Mhm. Yeah, I really admire your guys' courage in stepping into what I guess can be seen as the unknown, because I feel like a lot of people often just wanna stay. I mean, I'm talking about myself in general too, like, it's easy to stay in what's comfortable, and,
Mhm.
like, I've just, because 'cause I'm for sure stepping out of the military, but my husband and I have been just talking about, like, what we want for our future long term, and I think since my husband grew up with his dad was in the military, since he grew up with that lifestyle, it's really easy and tempting to just wanna stay in what's comfortable and what's known and where the benefits are nice and healthcare and, like, all the things are taken care of, but it's just, like, really discerning what our calling is, what the Lord is calling us to, and it's so different for everybody, but when the Lord is calling you to something and you can sense that clearly, it is disobedient when you don't obey that calling, and if you don't trust him, and we've been talking about that a lot. I mean, our son is only 2, but we're teaching him what it means to obey and why he needs to obey even when he doesn't necessarily understand exactly
Mhm.
what we're telling him, and so I feel like in teaching my son that lesson, it's caused me to reflect and think like, okay, like, are there things that God is calling me to that I'm not doing just because I don't understand every single detail? Like, especially with finances, like you said, they're scary and like this world harps on like having it all figured out. It can be really easy to not trust the Lord and step into what we know that He's calling us to. And so I really admire your courage and just I think it's also really cool that you reiterated trusting your husband as the leader of your household too, that you want to be on the same page as far as stepping into something like that. And I wanted to ask you just kind of like the fun side of it. Have you always been like creative? Like I know that for like business these days, you kind of also not have to, but most businesses like choose to have a social media page that's like
Mhm.
accompanying their business and everything. Like, do you enjoy that part of it, like the advertising and the visual stuff?
I do. I definitely have been creative like most of my life, but I was really not looking forward to the like content creation aspect just because I was feeling really overwhelmed at the start of
Hmm.
building my business. And my husband was like, you know, if you really want to engage with people, you're going to have to use social media. Everybody's online. And I fought it for a while. Um, but I've just found like easier ways to incorporate it into my everyday routine with baking and with like admin stuff. And then do some like funny, trendy videos too. But I definitely did fight it for a while because I didn't want to have to, you know, first of all, I didn't want to have to be on my phone all the time.
Right.
And that can be like really laborious, like the filming and editing. My phone also runs out of storage very easily
Mhm.
because I have like 22,000 photos and videos. Um, but I do like that aspect now, and it also allows me to connect with other people.
Mhm.
I had someone come to my market this past weekend, and I've known her for a while, her and her mom. And her mom was like, I love your videos. You're so genuine. And she's like, you're not like other people online. And I like really graciously received that compliment because it's hard to, you know,
Mm.
it's very easy to be disingenuous online because it is like a highlight reel and you can edit out the crappy stuff.
Yeah.
But I do try to keep it genuine on my page because of the same reason I mentioned with like doing things by the book.
Mhm.
Um, it's my best representation of myself and the best representation of Christ too.
Mhm. No, I yeah, totally understand, like, one, the fight to to kinda jump into the social media world because it is a lot of work, and I think when you're just a consumer, you're not always thinking about how much work it takes, like, it's so much fun to just sit there and watch videos, but, like, every video takes so much time, like,
Mhm.
even just putting out, like, our podcast reels and everything, like, it's so simple, but it just takes a lot of time, captions, like, all those different things, but it is a way since so many people are there to share the love of Christ, and, I mean, if there's gonna be people on social media, there better be Christians on social media,
Mhm.
in that sphere, and I also just have been thinking you've been talking about, just the, like, making sure you're doing everything by the book. I've been really dwelling on recently just the idea of, like, being above reproach and just what that
Mhm.
means, and, like, again, as I raise my kids, I feel like I learn every lesson through them, like, as I'm teaching them to have integrity and teaching them to work heartily unto the Lord and to do things, not for selfish reasons, but to serve others, like, it has really been just a good time to reflect and think about if I'm actually doing that in everyday life because it's so easy like you're saying to not be real and to just like want to present the best version of yourself so that you look good. But I've really enjoyed your videos for that same reason that that mom did. Like they just are very real and authentic and fun too. So just thank you for being a light on social media. But I know that starting a home business it can grow, I'm sure, in a lot of different directions. What do you think your long term hopes and goals are for the bakery?
I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I definitely don't want to go like brick and mortar. I don't want to open um a physical like bakery location, which usually would be the goal for
Mhm.
people who start out with a home-based bakery business. But I really do want to be home with our kids once we have kids, allow myself the same freedom that a lot of your listeners want to have too, the freedom to be home with their children, to maybe homeschool and just
Mhm.
like train their children up in the way of the Lord. So the goal is to keep it home based and eventually not dissolve it, but maybe sell it or train other young women
Mm.
or young moms in how to do it as well. I love teaching and I do teach classes on how to make sourdough, how to decorate sugar cookies. That one's kind of just for fun.
Mhm.
But my first job was also tutoring too. So I do love the teaching aspect. So I think maybe that could be part of the growth and not just like teaching how to make the bread or how to have a business, but how to do it in a godly way
Mhm.
and some like lessons around that and around homemaking, being hospitable, things like that.
Cool, cool. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about just a second ago, actually. Like, I feel like a lot of people, if they start a home business, the temptation can, and it's not always a bad thing to want to go brick and mortar and to grow a business. But the temptation, I guess, could potentially be to just like build yourself and your business up and like for your name's sake. But I think it's really cool just the thought and the idea of teaching other women to do something like that so that they can prioritize their family and serve their community and maybe make some sort of an income. I think that that's all super admirable. And do you know, have you ever been at markets with Haven Clay Co? Her name's Sierra. She runs
Yeah,
the
I'm
world.
such good friends with Sierra.
Okay, no way. So I've same thing.
Yeah.
I've never actually met her like in person, but we've talked like over like social media and stuff because I was at is it Wild Farm or there was one market that I was at a couple years ago, and her mom was there running her booth, and like her vision is the same exact thing. Like she wants to be able to like help other women have something from home so that they can stay home with their kids. And like just to read that mission like on her little pamphlet that she had, I was like, I felt so seen and just so like understood because like I think that a lot of women, I mean, you read the Proverbs 31 woman, like we're made to work and we're made to, you know, use our gifts, but we don't necessarily want to do that in a fashion that takes us away from our families. So I just think that those endeavors that you and Sierra are on are just super cool and really inspiring to me. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a little bit about sourdough because I have had like a sourdough starter for a couple of years now, but I'm not the kind of person who really understands sourdough. I just like do it. And again, like I talked about earlier, like I never improve because I never know what I like did the first time, but like I know that it's like quote unquote healthy. And a lot of people hear that sourdough is healthier than typical store-bought bread. And I know it's like, you know, the fermentation and all that kind of stuff. But can you actually talk about like what makes traditional sourdough bread different from like the bread that you'd buy, like the white bread that you'd buy on the grocery store?
Yeah, I love talking about the science behind sourdough bread. And we were talking about like how I love to teach. I actually taught a class at a homeschool tutorial
Cool.
all about like the fermentation process of sourdough. So the biggest difference is like the type of yeast or the type of leavening agent that's used in the bread. Traditional white bread from the grocery store is going to have commercial yeast, which isn't like inherently a bad thing. But to activate that, you need to add sugar. And then also, a lot of those breads have dough conditioners in them or wheat that is just like totally stripped of its nutrients. So they have to add it back in. And it's just, you're not getting like the good whole thing that you could be getting. So with sourdough bread, you use the process of fermentation to um, like capture the yeast, I guess you could say. So you can do that just with flour and water. You don't need any sugar at all. Um, and then as it ferments, the yeast will come and like live in the mixture of flour and water. Will eat the sugars that are already in the flour, like the carbohydrates, and then turn it into gas. And then you have your leavening agent, you could say. And then all you have to do is add that to more flour, water, and salt. So it's really just 3 ingredients. It's like the simplest bread that you could have. And you can make it even healthier by getting organic flour, which I use, unbleached, unenriched flour. You could even mill your own grains. I would like to get there one day. I want to have a table or countertop mill. Um, yeah, so it's just such a more nutrient dense option than the bread that you get in the store. And you
Mm-hmm.
also get the reward of I made it myself and you know how good it is for like you and your family too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to health and like our family's kitchen, I've just gone back to the word simplify. Like I've just been
Mhm.
trying to simplify and understand the process and the ingredients and just I want to know what exactly it is that we're putting in our bodies. And this kind of going back to my kids again, I think when my son started eating solids and when it started with milk for him, like when I had to research like what kind of milk he was going to drink after I was done breastfeeding, like
Mhm.
I just went on down this big rabbit hole, this big journey of like wanting to understand and know both the science and the why behind why sourcing our ingredients is so important. And I think a lot of families today are trying to move away from ultra processed foods. That's a great trend that we're on.
Mhm.
But why is it important to you to use simple, high quality ingredients in your baking?
I wouldn't want to make anything for anyone that I wouldn't personally eat. So that's the main contributor to that. And I do know it also is like appealing too. So I I want to cater my products to that group of people.
Hmm.
Not just Christians, of course. Like, yeah, I'm a Christian business, but I think if if I can have like-minded conversations with people who also care about what they're putting in their bodies, then I think it can open the door for other conversations and even conversations about Christ. Um, which also just like that makes evangelism simple as well,
Mhm.
and ministry here, like in your own hometown, simple.
Mhm.
But um, the ingredients, that was like a no-brainer for me because, like I said, I wouldn't want to make or sell anything to someone who I wouldn't, or that I wouldn't also eat myself. So, yeah, and then I don't have to think twice about where I'm getting it from. I like get my ingredients from the same place all the time, Costco.
Mhm.
I'm waiting for my sponsorship, my partnership with
Yeah.
Costco. um, but yeah, it's like it's simple that way, and it also, this is a random like cottage food fact, but you have to list all your ingredients out on your labels, and it has to be a certain size font. And if
Mm.
I used regular ingredients, I would have to have huge labels on my
That's
product.
so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like
Wow.
what you see at the store anyway with the ultra processed foods is like,
Yeah.
I know some people say if there's more than, I don't know what it is, like 10 ingredients or the ingredients you can't pronounce, then you really shouldn't eat it.
Mhm.
So I like to keep it simple, and people don't have to like think twice about it when
Right.
they choose salt and light.
Right. I'm just finishing the book, Be Good to Your Body by Jordan Lee Dooley. I don't know if you've followed her at
Oh
all.
yeah, I do, yeah.
But she was just in one of the last chapters of her book, she was talking about how, like, it's really simple. Like, we're just trying to eat food and not food that's pretending to be food.
Sure.
Like, we shouldn't be going for like the man-made food. Like, we should just go back to like the food that God gave us because there's plenty of it out there, like real food. It's just you do have to be intentional about sourcing it, and it is sometimes in the day and age that we live in inconvenient, and you, especially running a business, could easily choose to just buy the cheaper option, the more quickly processed, like convenient options. But I think it's really cool that, again, you're going and being above reproach, like not not trying to give other people something that you wouldn't want you or your family to eat yourselves. So I really admire that. And I think one thing that holds people back from potentially trying to make their own, whether it's bread or even like other things from home, is just the time aspect of it. And one thing that we've been talking about on the podcast is just the idea of simplifying life and returning to just more traditional rhythms in the home, and like appreciating the process of things. And I just want to know, like, do you think that breaking bread is something that families could realistically bring back into their homes as like part of their like weekly rhythms?
I definitely think so. I used to also like spend hours and hours in the kitchen, you know, even just like meal prepping for myself when I was single. But um I thought it was going to get harder in marriage because I'm like, now I'm cooking twice the amount of meals. And then I don't even want to think about what it's going to be like when I have kids. But I actually like did a lot of kind of prep work and like scratch cooking today. And I think I've really grown to appreciate it. And I think other people appreciate it too when we have people come over for dinner, unless it's a Costco pizza because we're doing movie night or something.
Mhm.
Like it's homemade, it's thoughtfully made. Um, Cooking and baking is the way that I share that I like care about people and the way that
Mhm.
I show love. And I think that goes to breaking bread in your home too. And it doesn't have to be this difficult thing.
Mhm.
We hosted Thanksgiving this past year, and we invited just our friends to come and hang out if they didn't have a place to go. Actually, one of them who came, she's in the military as well. And it was like everyone pitched in. It wasn't like I was cooking the turkey and 7 sides and 5 pies or whatever.
Mhm.
So, um, I think it's a great way to create community is breaking bread together, and it's so important, like, in the home as well too. Some of my fondest memories with my family growing up was meals around the table and then playing games or just chatting late at the table. And some of the most meaningful conversations that my husband and I have happen at our table as well. And same when our friends are over too. So I think if we stop overcomplicating it, if we simplify it, like you said, not just the ingredients, but also the processes, it doesn't have to look like a Michelin star meal, it can be simple things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think if it's done with intention and um, a thoughtfulness of like other things that are going on in your house as well, um, then I think that it definitely could bring a lot more joy back into the home. And instead of this like sense of dread of like, oh, everyone's doing this, I got to keep up with the Joneses, I got to make everything from scratch. But it's actually a blessing rather than a burden to do those things. Um, and it blesses a lot of other people besides just yourself and your family too.
Yeah. I think that like trying to cook from home has just forced me in a really positive way to slow down. And I think back to growing up, like we were very involved in sports and clubs and all the different activities, and like I'm thankful for that in a sense, because it taught me skills and work ethic and all those kind of things, and it got me to where I am today. But I also have reflected on that. Like we as a family, we did sit down and have dinner together, but it was less often than I would have liked. I think me and my sister, we would come out when it was convenient for us after doing some homework, or we would get home at like 8 o'clock some nights because we were busy with sports and things like that. And um, as a mom looking forward, and you mentioned homeschool, like that's what I think that we're going to do for our kids. And I'm just thinking about kind of what we want our home structure to look like. And I think that I do enjoy the, I'll say, restraints that having to cook from home puts on our families, or puts on my family. Like, not only does that mean I have to be intentional about like planning out the meals that we're going to have, which then like makes me really think about the ingredients and the price of those items. Like it kind of, it forces you, again, I'm using that word in like I'm trying to use it in a positive way. It
Yeah.
forces you to really, really think. And then also, I love that cooking from home like forces me to slow down and just do something with my hands. And then my brain, when I'm doing something with my hands, always is able to wander, which I don't have a lot of that throughout my day. Like there's not many times throughout my day where I'm not like really busy with something. And like I feel like when I'm cooking and my brain is free to just wander, that's when the Holy Spirit, I feel like, really like does his best work, is when I have that free space to like just like sift through my thoughts and take them to the Lord, and like pray for either who I'm cooking for or what we're doing that evening, or just like it just really forces me to slow down and be intentional, which I think is something that the Lord calls us to do. And I don't think that he necessarily designed us to be living in as fast-paced world as we are
Mhm.
today. And there's some things that like I just think we can do to get back to like his design for our lives, is like, which is the whole point of this podcast, is to just look at God's word and see like, okay, like what is his mission for us? Like what is he calling us to versus what the world is calling us to? And so I think it ties in that regard. And that's why we wanted to talk about hospitality, honestly, right as we are coming off of maternity leave, because it's really easy. We mentioned this in the first episode of this little series, is like, it's really easy to view homemaking as something that only the like stay-at-home mom, like typical trad wife does. But really, like, as particularly women in our homes, like we are called to that, whether we're working outside of the home or not. Like regardless, the home is the place that we spend so much of our time. It's where we are eating our meals. It's where we're resting. It's where we're having time as a family. Like it is so important, regardless of if you're outside of the home or not. And so to be able to get some rhythms down where you are able to try making things from scratch and provide meals for your family that are nourishing and healthy, like it is really important, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Like my mother-in-law is really good at making meals from scratch and just simplifying things. Like when I went back to work after my son, she was here helping us with childcare, and she lives like an hour away. And so she'll drive and spend like a night or two with us to
Mhm.
watch him throughout the week, which is amazing. But I was blessed so much by that because she was helping us cook as well. And I was able to just watch her in the kitchen and how like all these things that she made from scratch that I used to be really intimidated by, I was able to see how simple it actually was. And it wasn't that she had to like research this grand recipe and like figure out all like she just had implemented that into her life and like she learned along the way and then she was able to teach me. And I think that's a part of it too, like just um, the generational living aspect. Like I learned so much from her, and I think things like ChatGPT are great, but it's also great to just learn from other people. And so I think it's really cool that you teach classes to other girls too. So anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but I think I love what it forces us, again, I'll use that word one more time, what it forces us to do in slowing down and being intentional.
Yeah. I will say one more thing about like the rhythms, I guess, is that's actually why I really like making sourdough, because a lot of people do think in their mind, oh my gosh, it's this thing I have to keep alive and it's so much work, and I mean, how many hours a day am I going to spend on it? But I find that when I make it, not only for work, but just like if I want to make a loaf for me and my husband, um, there's like increments of where you do your stretch and folds and stuff like that. And instead of just like sitting around for those 30 minutes between those stretch and folds, I actually find myself being more productive or doing other
Mhm.
things. Cause I'm like, oh, now I have this like 30 minutes that I can get something done with. Usually I'm
Mhm.
like cooking dinner for later or cleaning or folding laundry or something like that. But I think it really is, like you said, a rhythm and a pattern. And it's something that does have to be learned, but that practice just becomes like normal routine, and it is very peaceful, and it does open up a lot of time for just you and your thoughts and taking those
Mhm.
thoughts to the Lord and um asking him to speak to you too.
Yeah, I feel like that again, I'll bring up my kids one more time. I feel like that ties into just the stewardship aspect, like, um, what you mentioned about having time in between stretch and folds. Like, I feel the same about having my kids. I feel like even though my kids make me busier, they also have made me more productive,
Mhm.
because I view my time in just a different way. Like, I wanna steward that time well, I wanna steward my time with them well, so I think that all kinda connects. And I there's this guy, that I work with, he's like him and his wife are, like, very crunchy, and, like,
Mhm.
I've considered myself pretty crunchy, but, like, he I'm just gonna share this. He, is so crunchy, like, his wife had a home birth, like, if they had a free birth, like, he was the one who, like, delivered the
Uh-huh.
baby, but then, like, he even told his wife that he would encapsulate, like, the placenta for her if she bought him, like, a fancy fillet knife that he could then use for fishing. So, anyway, he's very crunchy, but that's a tangent. One thing he says, though, is that once you decide to do it, you just do it, and
Mhm.
that's so simple, but, like, he was talking about, like, cloth diapers, for example, like, well, once you just decide that that's what your family does, you just do it, and same with, like, making your own bread, like, yeah, you gotta decide, like, the hardest part is just deciding that that's what your family's gonna do, but once you
Mhm.
just decide, then you're gonna adapt, and you're gonna learn how to budget your time better and to incorporate all the different pieces that are needed in, and soon you'll look back and be like, "Wow, this is just what we do." Like, that's just how we do it. Like, which it might seem kind of weird to the world, but we're not meant to be like the world
Mhm.
necessarily. So, let's see. What I know that some women feel intimidated by sourdough or unsure about like starting something from home. We're kind of talking about like the business and the homemaking aspect of it now. But what encouragement would you give to someone who wants to start baking sourdough or to use their gifts in a small home-based business?
I would say that starting small and simple, like we keep saying, is definitely the way to go. I fell into the trap of I need this whisk and I need these dough baskets and everything like that
Mhm.
in the beginning. And now that I've actually like scaled up and have a business making sourdough, I don't even use those things. I really
Mhm.
just use my hands instead of a whisk. I actually broke my whisk trying to make enough bread. um, but yeah, I mean, like you can always add those things in the future if you do want to scale up, or if you want to perfect your craft, I guess you could say. But start small. Um, if you just want to bake one loaf a week, that's totally doable. Um, you don't need a lot of discard, just for the sourdough part. And people are always like, what is the discard and all this sort of stuff? But I hardly use it because I just use my sourdough mindfully, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so start small, keep it simple, and then like make sure you're maintaining the joy that you get from doing those things. And if you're putting too much pressure on yourself, I would say maybe that's time to just take a step back, or even just enjoy other sort of hobbies or rhythms in the household that you do enjoy, that do give you life. And then you can get back to the other thing when you feel like, okay, I think that this is doable for me at this point. Because it can get overwhelming, especially, you know, when you over crunchify things. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gone down those rabbit holes too, where I'm like, our laundry detergent and our dish soap and like our bed sheets, and it's a lot. And so what helped me was I can focus on the food because I'm the one who goes and buys it every week. I'm the one who cooks it, and like we can slowly figure out the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the same goes for your business too. Um, like you only need a couple tools to really get started and do it legally. Specifically like with the cottage food laws, it's actually pretty easy in Maryland. So as long as you know what you need to do, um, you like make yourself a template, then you're good to go and you can scale up when you need to, or keep it the way it is.
Well, Olivia, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast and just sharing a bit of your story and just some encouragement for our listeners. This month of talking about homemaking, we're just talking about how the home is really the center of so many important things in family life. Like we talked about the food we eat, the rhythms we create, and the ways that we care for the people around us. And your bakery is just a beautiful example of how skills that start in the home, like baking bread, can grow into something that blesses others while still staying rooted in those same values of simplicity, nourishment, and faith. And it's also just a great reminder of the work that we do in our homes is meaningful, and that even simple things just can represent stewardship and service. So thanks again for sharing your story with us today. And for those who are local to Maryland, can you share how people can find your bakery?
Yeah. So my website is just saltandlightcottagebakery.com. It's the name.com. I have weekly porch pickups, but I also do events on a pretty regular basis in the like farmers market season. And then I post regularly on my Instagram. That's salt.and.light_CB. I post some funny stuff, some helpful stuff, um, some deep stuff. It's a little mix of everything. But yeah, I really appreciate the support, and I was really excited for today. It was a great time to chat about the business and like reflect on how Salt and Light started. I have to remember that sometimes, especially on the days when like business is kind of hard. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. For those of you who are local to Maryland, definitely find Olivia. And then also for those of you who aren't local, her Instagram is just really fun, encouraging, and I've learned some things from it too. So make sure to check out her Instagram. I'll link everything down in the description below. But thanks for listening to today's episode. This has been Erin and Olivia helping you find your mission.